So basically what I want to do now before we end is I want to look at that poem. So could everybody read? This is a poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley, because reading poems are like reading a book in miniature. You know, a poem is really like a book, all right, because it's so packed with meaning. Poets are, you know, I could write a whole book, and I'm not exaggerating. I could write a book commenting on this poem. I guarantee you, I know I could. I could write a book just commenting on this poem. That's how much meaning I consider to be in this poem. This is the reason I like this poem. It was the first poem when I was 12 years old. I was in 13. I was 13 years old in 8th grade, Mrs. Augustinelli's class. She was my English teacher. And I read this poem, and it gave me goosebumps. It's the first poem that ever really affected me like that, right? So for me, it has a lot of meaning in that way. But anyway, some people, you know, he's from the Romantics, Percy Bysshe Shelley, famous for marrying the woman that wrote a famous novel, right? Frankenstein. Anyway, these guys were very critical of a lot of things. But so just read it. So if you had to say in one word what you felt reading that poem, what would it be? That's like, yeah. I guess if you hyphenated them, we could consider them one word. Yeah. Okay. Why? What's the feeling? What did you feel? Have you read it before? No. So it's the first time you ever read it. Okay. It's a famous poem. So what did you feel?
Overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It was just like so much meaning in every single line that it was like overwhelming. And
what most struck you about it?
How I think it's kind of random, but at the same time it was just I couldn't put. I don't know what was the main point, but
okay.
Every single line was the main point.
Okay. Can anybody identify what you think the main point is? Rashida, what do you think the main point is in here?
I think the main point, well, for me it was kind of this irony, like here you are.
It's definitely a very ironic poem. Yeah. And what's the central irony?
That Ozymandias basically constructed this king of kings, greater than anything.
Yeah.
Persona, and what's left of him is a broken down statue.
Yes, in the middle of these, yeah, there's nothing there. Round the decay, right? that colossal wreck, boundless and bare. The lone and level sands stretch far away. Yeah. So, I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "To vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert, near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." That's the quotation. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains round the decay of that colossal wreck. Boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Now, if you get into are there any words that Ozymandias is actually a real name? Because this was during the British when they were beginning to discover Egypt, and they were coming back. They were actually bringing things back as well, but they were discovering, and so they had these travel logs. It was very popular to read about their experiences going up the Nile and seeing all these incredible Egyptian ruins of the pharaohs, and became in England it was a big deal. And so he's writing this poem about somebody who's come back, and he's telling him about his experience, right? And he's going to tell him about this. He was out in the desert, right? And then he saw this two vast and trunkless legs of stone, right? Trunkless legs of stone. It's amazing, trunkless. Like there's no body, just the legs of stone are there, right? Stand in the desert, right? They're standing there without a trunk, right? Near them, and then nearby on the sand, half sunk. And another really strong, and you can see the trunk sunk. You see these are the internal rhymes of the poem. I mean, these are he could have said he could have described half buried, he could have said, right? But he didn't. He said half sunk. A shattered visage lies. And sunk is something we normally think of the sea, right? Something sinks in water, but here's sand. Another type of water, the water of earth, right? Half sunk, a shattered visage, right? What's a visage? It's the face, right? And this is important because, that's an older word we don't know. So you have to know why he's using a visage, right? Lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command. What's he telling us about this guy? His character, right? Tell that its sculptor well those passions read, right? The sculptor really understood something about this character, right? Whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command. I mean, sneer, it's an interesting word, right? What does sneer mean? What do you do when you sneer at somebody? It's contemptuous, right? Arrogance, just sneering. Right? Sneer of cold command. Heartless. We're dealing with a heartless person here. Tell that its sculptor well those passions read. I mean, here we have reading, right? The artist reads also. It's a different type of reading. He's reading into the personality of the character that he's sculpting. He read well those passions because he's put them on that face. And then what's he telling us? Passions are, when you think of passion, what do you think of?
Fleeting.
Huh?
Fleeting.
Well, what do you think though? Passions. Like somebody's passionate, what are they? Huh? Yeah, but what? Passion. He's got so much passion. Huh? I mean, I think of life, somebody who's really alive. They're passionate, they're alive, right? So it's interesting, he's juxtaposing here, to tell that its sculptor well those passions read which yet survive. stamped on these lifeless things. So here he's juxtaposing passions with lifeless, and yet he's telling us they survive. How have they survived? The sculpture. You see, so this is Shelley's own little, we're getting into his philosophy now, because Shelley was a romantic and believed that in the immortality of art, that art was one way of achieving immortality. And so what he's saying is, look, Ozymandias doesn't really live anymore except because of this artist, right? So the artist actually outlived Ozymandias because he's the one that left behind this thing. It wasn't Ozymandias. He paid for it, but it was the artist that produced it, right? So he's that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them. What do you think he means there? Mock them. And the heart that fed. What does he mean, the hand that mocked them? What does mocked mean? What's mock mean? There's another poem, great poem, one of my favorite poems by Yeats. Come, let us mock at the great that had such burdens on the mind and toiled so hard and late to leave some monument behind, nor thought of the leveling wind. Come, let us mock at the good with all those calendars. Come, let us mock at the good with all those calendars whereon they fixed old aching eyes, nor thought of how the seasons run and now but gape at the sun. Come, let us mock at the wise that fancied goodness might be gay and sick of solitude might proclaim a holiday. Wind shrieked, and where are they? Mockers after that, who would not lift a hand maybe to bar that foul storm out, who would not lift a hand maybe to help the good, wise, or great to bow that foul storm out, for we traffic in mockery. Right? He's talking about the modern age. It's all mockery. Let's just make fun of everybody, make fun of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, it's an age of mockery. Make fun, everybody's open game. Make fun of politicians, make fun of everybody's open game for mockery. But is that what he's saying here, the hand that mocked them? See, this is importance of knowing terms. Yeah, that's what he means. He means more imitate, because that, in his time, mock also meant to copy or to imitate. The hand that copied them, because he wasn't mocking. He wasn't mocking Ozymandias. So this is important. You can't understand something unless you know the words that the author is using in it. So here he means the hand that copied them. Now what's he mean, the heart that fed?
The hand that mocked them, referring to words?
The passions. Yeah, he copied those passions. He nailed them. He got them on that face in stone. Right? The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. What's the heart that fed? Fed what? The passion. So it's the heart of Ozymandias. He got his heart. It's a cold heart. It's a contemptuous heart. It's a heart that, it looks down. It frowns on things. Not a happy heart. And on the pedestal, these words appear. I mean, what do we put up on pedestals, right? On the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. You'll never be able to achieve what I achieve. Despair. Mighty. He's talking to the mighty. He's not talking to the peasants. He's talking to other kings. I'm King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty. Not peasants. They're all shaking in their boots. I'm talking about the mighty should look at me and who I am. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. And then, boom, he's got the exclamation mark, right? And then what? Nothing beside remains. It's just such a beautiful turn of phrase to come right after that. Nothing beside remains. That's it. Right? Round the decay of that colossal wreck, right? This giant Ozymandias, nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, The level sands, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So what's he mean, boundless and bare? The lone and level sands stretch far away. What are the sands referring to? It's the desert, right? But what do you think? What do we think of sands also? The sands of time, right? So it's time. It levels everything. Everything we build, it's all going to be leveled. Time is the great leveler. So, he's basically just saying, look, nothing beside remains. It's all boundless and bare. The lone and level sands that stretch far away. There's just this little half-sunk visage in the midst of a massive ocean called time, that no matter what we do, it's always going to be this half-sunk, shattered visage in the ocean of time, the sands of time, right, in the end. Pretty bleak. Unless, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Unless people are building not for this world. Because all these things that you do here become meanings in the next world. Everything you do here is meaningful in the next world. That's another view. Anyway.